Good morning, first graders. This morning I have another story to read to you. But before we begin, I would like to go over some words for you that we are going to be coming to in our story. And this way we can go over those so that when we get to them in the story, you already know what they mean. So our first word is the word creeping. Creeping. Creeping means to move slowly or carefully, as so that in a way that nobody will hear you. So very secretively, you're creeping. It's a slow, quiet movement. Jeremiah, my son, is going to show us what creeping means. He's going to creep over here. He's creeping. He's moving slowly and quietly. He was creeping. All right, Jeremiah, can you creep on out? Moving slowly and carefully. Good job. Slowly and carefully. That is what creeping means. Our next word is the word lonesome. Lonesome is a word that describes how somebody might be feeling. A feeling, it's the same as feeling lonely. Or if something is described as lonesome, it might mean there's nothing else around or nobody else around. So it's lonesome, lonely. Our next word is the word swaying. Swaying means to move back and forth, or back and forth, back and forth. Can you sway with me? Everyone sway with me. Here we go. Back and forth, back and forth. Good swaying. Nice job. Lena, I saw that swaying. Nice job. All right. The next word I have a picture to help explain it. This is a spinning wheel. A spinning wheel is this thing right here. A spinning wheel is what's used to put fibers together to make yarn. And you would want yarn to make blankets and clothes. And back in the olden days, they definitely needed to make their own blankets and clothes. So they needed a spinning wheel to make yarn, to put the fibers from maybe the wool from the sheep, and to put that in there to make the yarn for the different projects that they had set up. So that is a spinning wheel. And our last word is the word mound. Mound. A mound is a rounded pile or hill. So instead of a point at it, it's kind of rounded. So a mound. And it's usually not very, it's not like a mountain. It's not huge. It's just something smaller, a rounded pile. All right? So those are the words that we will be having in our story today. And here is our story. It is called Going West. It is another story similar to the one we read last week about a family who lived in the east of the United States, and they heard about this land out west that was beautiful and wonderful, and it was a great place to grow crops and grow things. And people started just moving out there, and they could get land pretty easily. And so many families picked up everything they had and went on the wagon trains, or took their wagons and went with a group of people, and they headed on out. So this is another story of a family that did that, Going West. It's Going West by Jean Van Leeuwen. That's the author. Remember, an author is the person who writes the words. And the pictures, or the illustrator, are by Thomas B. Allen. Thomas B. Allen is the illustrator. That means he did the pictures. These are some beautiful pictures in here, so pay attention closely to the pictures. One day in early spring, we packed everything we had into our wagon, tied our milk cow Sadie on behind, and set out to find a new home, Going West. There were 5 of us, Papa and Mama, me, Hannah, just turned 7, my little brother Jake, and Rebecca, and a fat baby with yellow curls. So Rebecca was the baby of the family. Mama cried. She was leaving her 3 sisters and all of our furniture and the piano she loved to play. But Papa said we were going to a place where anything you planted would grow, and a farm could stretch out as far as the eye could see. We left behind the town we knew, the woods, the hills. We rode, bouncing and swaying in the creaking wagon day after day. At night, Mama cooked over a campfire, and we slept close together on the wagon floor, with stars winking through the opening in our canvas roof. Here they are in their wagon. You see their cow Sadie behind them. Here's just a picture. This page has no words, just a picture. So you can see the mom cooking over the fire and the dad working with the horses, getting them ready for the night. Here is what was in our wagon. Blankets and pillows and quilts, Mama's favorite rocking chair, trunks full of clothes, barrels full of food, a cook stove, a box of tin dishes, all of Mama's cooking pots, all of Papa's tools, a Bible, a rifle, which is the type of gun, and a spinning wheel. Oh, remember our spinning wheel? They had one of these with them too. There was barely room for us. It's a lot of things to fit in there. Sometimes it rained. Our wagon got stuck in the mud, and we all had to get out and push. Once it rained so hard that the wagon leaked. That night we slept in wet clothes, in wet beds, without any supper. Rebecca cried, and Jake said he wanted to go home. Mama didn't say anything, but I think she felt the same. We were all tired of the rocking wagon and the dust and the same sights day after day. Jake fell out and hurt his arm. Rebecca caught a cold. At night she coughed and coughed. Mama looked worried, but still we rode on, going west. We came to a river all muddy and wide. How will we get across? I asked Papa. The horses will take us, he said. First the water came up to the horses' knees and then to their chests. Suddenly Papa shouted, "Hold on tight!" The horses were swimming. Water was pouring into the wagon. Mama held me tight until at last I felt the horses' feet touch the bottom again. We had crossed the river. Ooh, how scary would that be to be inside that wagon as they were floating down the river. Whew. They made it. Might have been a little bit wet, but they made it. On the other side of the river, the land was flat with no trees. There was not a bush and not a stone, nothing but green, waving grass and blue sky and a constant whispering wind. Ooh, what do you think a whispering wind sounds like? Maybe a whispering wind. It seemed a lonely, empty place. But Papa said, "This is the land we have been looking for." As the sun was setting, we came upon a place where wildflowers bloomed in mounds of pink and lavender and blue, like soft pillows. "Look," said Mama, smiling. And Papa said, "Here is where we will build our house." The next day we began. Papa took the horses and rode away. When he came back, he brought logs from the creek. For many days he worked, slowly with Mama helping. He built walls, a roof, and a door. Finally, he took Mama's rocking chair and set it next to our new fireplace. It was only one room with a dirt floor, but at last we slept in a house again. Can you imagine living in a house where just one room for everything? The kitchen was in one room, the bedrooms were in one room, and the floor was dirt. A little bit different from how we live, right? We are so blessed in so many ways. But they were thankful to have a house to sleep in, no matter what size it was. Mama planted a garden. Jake carried water from the creek to do the washing. I minded the baby and swept the dirt floor and helped Mama hang checked curtains on the windows. "There," she said, "we are ready for visitors." But no visitors came. We were alone on the vast prairie. No neighbors or friends, all by themselves. Papa rode away again, many miles to town. For 3 long days we watched and waited. And then Papa came back. He brought flour and bacon and 6 sheep that he traded for one of the horses, and a surprise, real white sugar. Mama baked a cake, and it reminded me of home. So they didn't have cell phones. They didn't have telephones to talk to the Papa when he was gone. They had to just wait. They didn't know when he would be back. They didn't know where he was exactly. And they just had to wait and see what would happen. They weren't sure what was going on with him. They just had to be patient. Summer came. A hot wind blew. Papa went out hunting for rabbits, and Jake and I picked blueberries next to the creek. Mama lay down in the grass with the sheep. Oh my, she sighed when we found her. This is a lonesome land. Lonesome. Remember lonely? Wonder how Mama was feeling. Maybe kind of sad, missing her family. Day after day, the sun beat down, baking our little house, shriveling up the plants in the garden. It was so hot that nothing moved, not even the wind. If only we had a tree for shade, said Mama. One afternoon, when Jake and I were out at the creek, dark clouds suddenly covered the sun. Thunder rumbled and lightning flashed. We ran for home. But before we got there, hail came tumbling out of the sky, big and round and hard as marbles. Quick, I shouted, the buckets! We put them over our heads and kept running. Mama was waiting at the door. Thank goodness you're safe, she said. Now I wonder why they had buckets on their heads. Why do you think they put buckets on their heads? What do you think, Ian? Yeah, to protect their heads from the hail, right? So they use the buckets to protect themselves. You don't want to get hit hard in the head with a big piece of hail. That was smart thinking. When the storm was over, Mama's garden was squashed flat. This land is good, she said, but the weather is hard. Never mind, said Papa. In the spring we will plant again. There's Mama's garden. Not much left to it. Just a pile of mud. Mama was frying donuts, and Jake and I were doing our lessons on the dirt floor when visitors came. Indians. Jake hid under the bed. I crept behind the rocking chair. My knees trembled with fright. They looked so fierce. Remember, fierce, we talked about mean or very serious looking. Not very friendly. But Mama smiled. She gave one of the Indians a donut. The Indian smiled. Mama kept on making donuts, and the Indians kept on eating donuts until Papa came home. And then the Indians went away. The wind turned cold. Mama stored up potatoes and berries and nuts for the long winter to come. Papa went hunting for deer. He came back with Mr. Swenson. Mr. Swenson stayed for supper, and afterward he played his flute while Mama sang, sitting around the fire. And suddenly the prairie wasn't lonely anymore or empty anymore. We had a neighbor. But they were all very excited to see somebody else. Do they have Christmas out here? Jake asked. And I wondered too. But but Mama said, of course. So we hung our stockings by the chimney. Rebecca got a cup, Jake a whistle, and I found Nellie, a rag doll with yellow braids. Later we had wild turkey for dinner, and Mama opened the jam she had been saving all year, and everything was just like Christmas. Ooh, I wonder what season this is. Look at that. Now the icy wind seeped through the cracks in our log walls. We put on all the clothes we had and huddled next to the fire. Wonder why they did that. Do you think they had heat? Do you think they could just flip on a switch and turn on the heater like you do at home or mom and dad do? They didn't. They didn't have any heat. It was really cold, much colder than it gets here in Washington. And so they just put on all the clothes they had to keep warm, and they all sat by the fire. The fire was the only thing that gave them heat, tried to keep warm there. So one morning, it was so cold that Mama's fresh baked bread was frozen solid. And then it began to snow. It snowed for 3 days and 3 nights. Papa tied a rope from the house to the stable so he could feed the animals. Look, here's Papa. Look how high that snow is. It's almost up to the roof. So in order to get from the house to the stable, he had to tie a rope so he could find his way. And so probably to help him get there too. Jake and I did our lessons, and Mama helped me sew my quilt. And we all listened to the wind howling outside. At last, everything grew still. Looking out, we saw no woodpile, no stable, no sky. Nothing but snowdrifts up to the roof of our little house. All they could see was snow because there was snow all the way to the roof. So if they looked out the window or looked out the door, it was just snow. Can you imagine? Whew. A lot of snow. It was a long, cold winter. We had nothing to eat but potatoes and hard biscuits and nuts. Rebecca cried because she was hungry, and one day Mama counted the potatoes and said, "There are only 6 left." But then slowly the snow began to melt. Each day the drifts under our window grew smaller. Papa took down his rifle and went hunting again, and that night the smell of rabbit stew made our house warm once more. I wonder what Papa found when he went out hunting. Do you think it was rabbit? They had rabbit stew. One morning, when the grass was turning new green, Papa said, "It's planting time." So he hitched the horses onto the plow and broke through the tough prairie grass to the dark, rich soil beneath. For days he worked, plowing long, straight rows. Then Mama dropped in the seeds, and Jake and I covered them up. The warm sun shone, the seeds sprouted, and all around us, as far as my eye could see, was our farm. Just like Papa had said at the beginning of the story, right? That you can look as far as you can see, and that will be your farm. It was Mama's birthday. Jake and I picked flowers for the table. Papa brought home a surprise, a little tree from the creek to plant by the front door. Remember how Mama had said she wished she had a tree because the sun was so hot? Well, Papa remembered that and bought her a tree to put by the house. "Next year, if the corn does well," he said, "we will buy a piano." And Mr. Swenson came for dinner with another surprise, his new wife. "Welcome to our home," said Mama. We ate Mama's food and listened to Mrs. Swenson tell us about back east, and sang, sitting around the fire. Outside, a soft wind was blowing in the new corn. I looked around at Mama in her rocking chair, and Rebecca sleeping, and Jake leaning on Papa's knee, and our house felt like a home. Do you think they were starting to feel happy where they were at in their new home? I think so. Now they had a neighbor, they had friends, and their crops were growing. It was getting to be someplace that they were realizing was home for them. All right, thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that story. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Work hard, do great, neat work, and I will see you in another video soon. Bye.